Hello, it is I, Dharma, also known as the Entertainer, also known as your Demi-Omni Queen, and welcome back again today. And, happy Pride Month, everybody. I'm sorry if I failed to mention it so far. Mainly over on my podcast, I've been, talking about Pride and doing Pride stuff, so if you want to listen to me ramble on about Pride all throughout this lovely month of June, then go ahead and check out my podcast linked in the YouTube description down below. It's called Write What You Want to Read, Draw What You Want to See, and throughout the rest of the year, I talk about professional novel writing, drawing, professional works, and all sorts of tips, tricks, and what not to do's. So please do check it out over there. Like I said, we are fully embracing the gay over there. Whereas over here, I'm continuing with my normal fun content because over there I have 200 and something podcasts about novel writing and drawing digital art. Whereas over here, I feel like I should continue with the fun stuff for now. Not that Pride isn't fun, I'm just, I'm still building up my brand over here, still building up my audience over here, so if you wouldn't mind, I'm gonna hold off on the Pride over here for now. But with that all being said, today I have a special one for you all. Now, if you all have seen my other video, the 3 character tiers, It's meant to be a pun on Musketeers, the 3 Musketeers, but it's character tiers. I get it. I get the joke. But if you haven't seen that over there, that's where I talk about 3 character concepts that I had come up with. Well, now, as you can probably see on the screen now, we have 6. So today I'm going to be talking about these characters and their concepts, some of the expanded things upon them. If you want a little bit more background information about the very first drafts of these character concepts, please do go check out that video I mentioned. Because 3 of them are featured here. They're a bit different here, though. It's not required for you to see the other video to understand this one. So, yeah. So, anyways, let's get into it. So, I'm going to start off with the first one. The first one is, in the artwork, let's just start from the very left, okay? So the first one on the very, very left. Now, this first one is based off a character concept in the Character Tiers video of the Knight. Now, there, I didn't have much information on him, but now I've got a little bit more information. So basically, I'm gonna call him Bagel, because I don't have names for any of these characters yet, except for one. So, yeah, we're just gonna call them food names, because I am eternally hungry. So, Bagel here, he is a knight. Now, the story that I have so far for his backstory is basically that he was a part of this knightly organization that was meant to protect artifacts. At least the ones that were the most powerful and therefore most useful would do that. And they'd be locked away in a chamber for thousands of years until somebody came to disturb the artifacts, and then they'd fight them off. But our dear friend here, Bagel, he was not good enough for the Masters, and the Masters decided that he would be a part of the low class of the Knights, which is basically the servant class. Now, sadly, he was locked in a tomb or something to be someone's long-awaited prize, because these servants are meant to be some of the best servants ever, and are essentially brainwashed to be the best servants ever, thinking that they're doing the best thing ever instead of having individuality. So he was locked away, frozen in stone, because that's how they preserve themselves until the time is right. He's frozen in a tomb thinking that, oh, I must be one of the greatest people in the world. It's such an honor to be someone's servant, someone who I don't even know and may never get to know because I'm locked away in a tomb that nobody thinks to touch. So, yeah, that's basically his backstory. Now, eventually, he does get out of that tomb via a character we'll be talking about in a short second, and afterwards, this character saves his life. Now, this is a double whammy for the character that saves him, because A, he doesn't want this guy to be his servant, and orders him to be out of service for him, which our nightly guy does, Bagel does. You know, he's no longer in service because he was asked not to be. This new character ends up getting hit with a double whammy of not wanting to be with this guy when he saves the knight's life. Because yet again, the knight isn't the greatest of his order and, you know, was not made for fighting or anything of that nature. So this new character saves his life, and now they're bound. It's one of those classic, you saved my life, and now I'm forever in your debt kind of deals. Except this guy is also acting like a servant. So, you know, that's not great. This nightly guy, this bagel guy, he's all like, I am eternally in your service. I know you told me not to be in your service, but I am bound to you now. And basically what this means is when one of the knights is bound to somebody that saved them, that basically means they have the power to not necessarily teleport, but make it super speedily to their location and fight off whoever's trying to hurt them. They basically act as a bodyguard that is bound to you and you cannot fire. So, yeah, so now this other character is stuck with Bagel for all of time. So, yeah. Speaking of this character, the next character, which is is the next one on the left, he's, I'm just gonna call him Cheese. So, Cheese here, he's a curly-haired boy that went through way too much trauma. Basically, he was picked up off the streets by evil scientist guy, a lot like his original concept, and was given powers and stuff through this magical goo called Void. This Void goo came in the form of a lake, which could be accessed, and the basic gist of it is if someone has an injury when going into the Void Lake, the Void goo will seep into them, giving them powers when they get out. If there's not an apparent injury or something of that nature, they'll just die. So scientist guy, lo and behold, betrays little curly-haired boy guy and cuts him across the eye before shoving him into the Void Lake to gain his powers. After he emerges from the Void Lake, he is now bound to the service of whoever says the magic words. Wake up, wake up. I'm not sure if I'm gonna stay with these magic words. I might change it in the future, but we'll just go with this for now. So he is bound to these words, and these words bind him to his boss, and now his boss is able to assign him to do whatever he wants him to do, which is mainly just fight other peeps and, you know, train him to become a master assassin, which he does. And he ends up becoming the best assassin ever. But the thing is these binding words begin to wane after a while. After a while, these words don't affect him as heavily as before, until slowly but surely he's got his consciousness back. And so soon enough, he's able to make a daring escape. But not before he is one of the most wanted assassins ever known. So once he does this, he decides to go on journeys all across the land, all across the galaxy and stuff, hiding from cops and police and stuff, until he makes it onto this planet where he hears of a tomb of which there was many riches. He figured he could get those riches and then run off and go by himself like a private moon or something, so he doesn't have to deal with any of this crap. So he goes off into the tomb, and being the strong boy that he is the only one able to crack it open like a walnut, because the void goo gives him strength and these inky black tentacles, and, you know, makes his eyes change color, which is the least, not the best thing. It's kind of creepy, but that's how it's meant to be. So yeah, he's able to crack it open, and that's where he meets Bagel. And yet again, Bagel ends up being his servant because because Cheese is the first person he sees when the tomb's inner chamber is opened. Cheese initially denies Bagel's request to assist him before eventually getting fed up and telling him, "I don't want you to be my servant," or whatever you are, or something along those lines. And so Bagel obeys his orders and basically goes and wanders until he ends up in some sort of deadly situation where Cheese rolls his eyes and goes and saves him. Now, Bagel is bound to him. So no matter what, he's stuck with Bagel. But the whole entire character arc of Cheese is that he won't accept the fact that he needs help. He wants to take all of the riches he's gotten, go buy himself a private moon, and never think about his problems again. But even if that plan would have succeeded, he still would be left with a heavy amount of trauma. And, that's not great. So, yeah, also, they might be gay for each other. Maybe. I don't know. If you guys didn't know this, a lot of my characters are part of the LGBTQIA in some sort of way, and we'll be going over this, in a little bit. For example, Bagel, I believe Bagel just doesn't care what pronouns you use. He doesn't care, and he strikes me as being the pansexual kind of dude. Like, he's very upbeat in spirit, he's very happy. Like, I get that the artwork I'm showing does not properly represent his upbeat attitude, because they're all supposed to be neutral, in facial expressions, but usually he's giving a great big smile and things like that, and, just being a happy pansexual boy. And Cheese, I believe Cheese goes by he, they. He doesn't want to be she, her. But yeah, and I'm not 100% sure who he is when it comes to his sexuality. Right now he's striking me as a bisexual, but he could be something else. I don't know. Anyways, as we moved more towards the middle, we have our girl here. I'm gonna call her Jerky. Alright, I'm gonna call her Jerky because it just makes sense for her character. Now, Jerky, she is the strong feminine type. She leads an organization of super spies known as Reborn. Now, Reborn was a super spy organization created after the collapse of the corrupted super spy organization Trials, and is trying to clean up the organization and make it a heck of a lot better. Basically taking old agents that figured out that the old organization was bad and collecting them together to help her recreate the organization, but less evil, So she ends up becoming the head of the organization, and she is very cold despite having fire powers, probably. And she's very cold to her people. She loves seriousness above all else, and lives to work, essentially. She does her work, she does her super spy. She occasionally goes on missions herself simply because the targets might be too powerful for the average agent, or because, she's got a personal business to take care of. Her backstory is that she was secretly a princess of heck, essentially. And she is a demon princess, essentially. And one day she decided she didn't want to be one anymore. She wanted to leave. She wanted out of this silly, stupid mess. So she gave her bodyguard not something poisoned, but just like something that would put him to sleep. I can't remember the word. But basically, she slips some insta-sleep into, some croissants she made. This is partially based off of a dream where I was the bodyguard of a princess and ended up getting drugged by cat-shaped croissants. But aside from that, she basically drugs the poor kid and, he falls into a slumber while she gets to escape. I'm not sure if the poor guard person is going to come back later on in the story for revenge, but we'll see. But basically, she slips out as a princess, goes to live her life, and eventually ends up getting a pretty large and pretty apparent scar, which is that half of her face is just a skull. I'm not 100% sure how she gets the scar yet, other than it is 100% cool and reminds me so much of Ghost Rider. That's why I said maybe she'll have fire powers. I don't want her to just be feminine Ghost Rider, okay? So, like, I might change it. But, yeah, so basically she goes on and found the organization and stuff before meeting, our next character, which we'll be talking about in a minute. But, yeah, she's very fiery, and but calm and serious, and basically is the straight man of the group. She's a she, her, but, yeah, I'm not sure 100% if she's just a lesbian. I definitely want her to be attracted to more, those who are more feminine, but isn't necessarily, like, a full-on lesbian, but yeah, so that's basically who she is. The next person up is, Mr. Universe, or Whitley Universe. He's the only one here with an actual name. You can tell which one I've thought about the most. But basically, Whitley, as he later goes by, but he's usually just Mr. Universe, is one of the gods of a certain pantheon in My Little Writing Universe. Now, originally, the gods would just hang out in their high heavens. They would never come to visit any of the planets or any of the people. They'd sculpt new beings out of, clay and stuff, literally sculpting them and things like that. There was a goddess of time, there was a goddess of the moon / the gates to heck and heaven, there were all sorts of different gods. But he was a special one. He is basically not the physical manifestation of the universe, but there isn't really a better way to put it. But yeah, he is basically the universe. And over time, he's kind of evolved. He's got these magic quartz stones all over him. And the first one he got was his soul quartz stone. And this basically allowed him to exist. Then he died and reincarnated and got another stone, which gave him sentience. Then he died, reincarnated again, and got another stone that allowed him to exist in space. Then he died, reincarnated, got one that allowed him to exist in time, etc., etc., all the way up to feelings, which is on his navel. And this is basically just his cycle of existence. Every time he dies, he must reincarnate, unless his soul quartz is broken. But every time he dies, he must reincarnate because he is an aspect of the universe. The universe can't exist if he can't exist. It's one of those things where the universe can't exist if he doesn't exist, if he doesn't exist, the universe doesn't exist, and things like that. So that's basically how it works. So every time he dies, he is basically destined to reincarnate, and he remembers all of the times throughout history of when he's died, and all the people, he's watched over, and things like that. Well, in his most recent reincarnation, because he's gained the Stone of Feeling, he has gained the ability to feel. Before, he was calm and reserved and kind of just watched over individual beings, but now he is an arrogant, snobbish dude who loves ballet way too much and kind of just exists. He's very rude and snobbish, and he thinks he's all that, which he technically is, but humor yourself, man. But yeah, so basically something happens to the high heavens, which is basically where all the gods live, and all of the rest of the gods die. At least I think they all do. I don't really know. I know I'm the one writing all of this, but I don't really know either. But yeah, leaving him to fall to the main planet and basically become partly human. Which, basically in the lore of my universe, if someone decides to go to a planet from the high heavens, it automatically gives them biological features, a stomach, things of that nature. They automatically get biological processes, and they can't reverse this. There is no reversing this. You either stay up in the high heavens and be an eternal god forever, or you go down to the planet and end up getting all squishy and stuff. Yeah. And for Mr. Universe, he ends up doing something, learning some humility, humbling himself a little bit. He's still a little arrogant and snobbish, but, he's a little less selfish at this point. That's his big character flaw, is that he's selfish. And, doesn't want to save the world. He wants to save himself. And I'm sorry that my voice is slowly dying. But yeah, so he learns to be a little less selfish. He's also gotta go see a therapist, to be honest, though, because the reason why he's so selfish is because of all the times he's died. He remembers the feeling of dying and remembers feeling it multiple times. And to him, it's painful each time. So, it really hurts him to think about doing that again, even though it may be inevitable because of the never-ending cycle. He wants to avoid that as much as possible because it scares him to death. So yeah. And basically, even though he's the most powerful and has random reality-bending powers, he does have very obvious and very huge weaknesses. In order to kind of balance him out, I'm allowing him to have all of these crazy powers, but each of the gemstones each of the quartzes that he has on him are a weak point, and they're incredibly fragile. You can't necessarily just lightly punch him, or even hard punch him, and they'll instantly, break in half or something. But, if you put a little force, a bit of effort into it, it'll begin to crack, and that'll cause him to kind of go haywire, like if you crossed wires in a robot, or just straight up, cut some wires. It no good. So yeah. The next one up we have, as we're moving towards the right side, is, let's see. What shall I call him? I'll call him Nacho. Okay, so Nacho, he's one of the less developed ones of the crew, along with the last person. But basically, he's meant to be the reincarnation of a character that I made way back when called Feng Dagon. He's meant to have all of the guy's powers and things like that. But the main conflict with him is he's nothing like Feng Dagon. Feng Dagon is a special figure in history for, freeing people from the oppression of, really weird government and things like that, and kind of saving the world from killing off the entirety of, an entire group of people, essentially. So he's this massive historical figure, whereas our pal Nacho here, he's just your regular guy, He has a sister that he loves to death, and he has a lovely niece that he loves to death. But the thing is he doesn't feel like he's worthy of anything, because no matter what happens, it kind of goes like this. He gets a job, he gets a place, he gets it all set up, he works for a while, he does good, then something happens, and, he spirals into losing his self-esteem until he gets fired, moves back in with his sister, and the cycle starts all over again. And he just can't seem to let go of the notion that, hey, you're okay, you're not worthless. So, he keeps getting stuck in this cycle of, doing this over and over again, and then add in powers he doesn't know how to control into the mix, or just heavily tied to his emotions, and now he's really just, big sigh. But eventually he does end up proving himself, I'm guessing against a dragon or something, because dragons are cool. Take it from a writer. A lot of times the things we add into the stories just because they're cool. But yeah, so he ends up defeating some sort of beast or something, and he ends up winning the day. He ends up finding his own flow and things like that. And, all that goodness. And, yeah. I'm thinking of making him into a transgender character as well. I just refer to him as he for now because it's just for now. I'm not 100% sure if he's going to be transgender or not. I'm definitely thinking about it, though. I think with the way his character is, with being kind of shy, kind of nervous, but at the same time he can be strong when he needs to be, I think he's just an awesome character, He's just an awesome character, and I feel like that's how he'd feel. Or she'd feel, I should say. But yeah, that's just the idea for it. The next character is, a nice girl character. Yet again, she's one of the lesser developed ones. She is a part of a witch coven, essentially, that is, like, one of the highest witch covens ever known, and, she has to wear this, kind of creepy mask. I lightened it up in the, actual artwork for it. I lightened up a lot of the kind of it's not very creepy, but it's just, for some reason, all of the designs in my head where it's something, like something with a mask, it's just automatically just like, So I kind of livened it up. I removed the mouth of the mask. I removed the mouths of all the characters because for some reason I'm sucking in mouths, while I'm drawing this, so I'm so sorry. But yeah, so basically she's a young witch who joined this coven. She didn't necessarily get kicked out, but she was told to study elsewhere because she wasn't deemed enough for the coven. She was allowed to keep her magic mask and things like that, but she was kind of just left to go figure it out. So she's learning magic, she's learning all of the different things about magic and, transformation and stuff. I'm not sure what her main magic type is going to be because I'm not sure if, what name, okay, it was bagel, cheese, and then jerky, because I'm not sure if jerky is going to have, like, multi-elemental powers, because, like I said, I don't want her to come off as just feminine Ghost Rider. That's not at all what I'm going for. She's meant to be an original character for my story, but at the same time, it's one of those things where, like, copyright's gonna bite me in the butt. So yeah, I'm not sure if I'm gonna give her elemental powers, and if I am gonna give Jerky elemental powers, then our witch friend here is gonna end up getting transformation powers, like she can turn into a panther and things like that. Like, that's her main magic type, is basically transfiguration from Harry Potter. And, she can become different animals for fighting. And if Jerky doesn't become an elemental and just sticks with fire or something, I think our witch friend's probably gonna be doing something more Doctor Strange-esque. So, yeah, it really just depends on where I go with, like, a lot of these characters, their storylines, certain storylines of theirs hook onto other characters, so if I pull the strings of one character, it's gonna affect all of the others in some way. And, when it comes to having a bunch of different characters a part of your main team, you've got to it's important to do power control and power balance because, you don't want one person to be able to reverse time and then not use that power when there's that fatal moment when somebody dies. You don't want to accidentally create the problem of a million plot holes for yourself. So that's why my dumb microphone. That's why it's important to work on power balance more than anything, I think. But yeah, so, because you don't want to screw up your story just because one person can erase the entire universe and just have us all start over and the others, they can flip flapjacks. So, it's one of those things. But, yeah, so these are basically the main 6 I've been thinking about a lot lately. Yeah, so I do hope you enjoyed this speed paint. I'm not sure if I'm just gonna have the speed paint of these characters and others, so, yeah, I'll see about that in post. But yeah, so thank you all for listening / watching. I say thank you all for listening like I'm on my podcast. Speaking of my podcast, please do check it out in the YouTube description down below. There, like I said, I do professional novel writing, I do professional digital art, I do lots of stuff. I do stuff outside of that, I do stuff in that. Like I said, throughout this whole entire month, I'm doing Pride stuff. Although I might end it early simply because, I might be running out of things to say just a little bit. So, yeah, please do go check that out, and I will be seeing you all later.